Welcome back to the Hooked with TMO Fishing Podcast, where we talk about fishing and recovery and maybe do a little bit of ranting and complaining, and where I may or may not be wearing pants right now. You never know. I'm Tim Moore. Today I'm flying solo. I have a few things that I'd like to discuss, and I'm going to take this opportunity to do that. In a recent episode, we had Matt Johnson from Clam Outdoors on here. We're talking about being a pro staffer, and we talked a lot about what companies are looking for. And I get emails all the time from people who are trying to break into the recreational fishing industry, or people that are kind of just getting involved, and they want advice. They want to know what to do. And there are a few important things that I see, mistakes that I see a lot of pro staffers make, and things that I wish I'd known along the way. So let's get this going. Hope you enjoy this. Thanks for tuning in. If you're watching this on YouTube or listening on Podbean or Stitcher or Google or Apple or wherever you're listening to it, hit that subscribe button. Really appreciate that. That helps us out a lot. Lets those channels know that you're watching and paying attention, and that people actually give a crap about this podcast. So here we go. So one of the things that I think is really important is there's this attitude of it's all about who you know. Success in the fishing industry is all about who you know, and I've heard people say that, and there is a little bit of truth to that, as in, being friends with somebody in the fishing industry who has connections that you might want to make certainly can't hurt to have somebody put in a good word for you. I've achieved a lot based on recommendations from other people, but that's not the end all. I don't think for this industry, it's definitely not something that you want to just get out there and try to meet people. And you certainly don't want to meet somebody that works in the industry and immediately ask for a favor. The favors that have been done for me, most of them haven't been asked for. And when I do need a favor, I usually ask for it from somebody that I consider a friend, not just an acquaintance that I happen to run into, somebody that I would do the same for them. So that's one thing to remember. It's don't just start reaching out. If you happen to meet somebody, I get messages all the time from people I've never even met. I have no idea who they are. And they say, "Oh, can you put in a good word for me with Clam or with Old Town? I love kayak fishing, and I'm a really good fisherman, and I really love this, and I want to get into the industry so bad. I'm super passionate. Can you put in a good word for me?" And my struggle is always, when I put a word in for somebody, I'm putting my reputation on the line. And if I don't know you, it's one of the first things that these companies want to know is, well, how do you know them? Why should we look at them? And so when I reach out and I say, Jimbo is looking to get into the kayak fishing industry, Old Town, and they really want a spot. Do you have a place? Can you get them in there? I think they'd be a really, really good fit. When I say that for somebody I don't know, it kind of hurts my credibility as well. So you can't just reach out to people you don't know, that you're not really good friends with, that you haven't worked with, and ask for them to give you a recommendation or give a recommendation to somebody about you. It doesn't really work that way. It hurts my credibility with my sponsors or affiliations, pro staff positions and whatnot. So don't reach out to people. If you do reach out to somebody you don't really know, you just happen to know them through Facebook, but you've never really met, or you've met once, and you don't get a response, that's probably why, because it is asking a lot of that person to give a recommendation for somebody they don't know. Like, you don't recommend people you don't know for things. So that's one thing to keep in mind. It is all about who you know, but you have to actually know them before they're going to give you any help in this industry. This is a very competitive industry. The fishing industry, I've found over the years, is a very small world, very, very small world. Once you get your foot in the door, this is not like, Hollywood, where me running into a Tom Cruise or, some big name star is a once in a lifetime opportunity that you're only going to get if you become a megastar like they are. The fishing industry, you can be for lack of a better term, nobody, and you're going to meet the Dave Genses and the Jason Mitchells and the Mike Iaconellis and the Matt Johnsons and the Jeff Andersons and all these people that I looked up to for years and years and years that were in this industry long before me, the Thomas Allens, and there's just this huge list of people that I've met and become friends with that every time I actually become friends with one of these people and more than just a professional acquaintance, I just have to kind of pinch myself. And it's just a good reminder of how small this industry is. Which brings me to another topic, which is how small the fishing industry is. I see a lot of people who will want to make a break into the industry, and they'll they're really good anglers, and probably have the ability to build quite a following. But one day you'll look on their social media and there's a picture of them with a really detailed post about how they caught that fish and what they used and what technique they used, and might be a great post. And then the next day there's a picture of a underage girl doing keg stands, those two things, don't really go very well together. And I can tell you that the minute you affiliate yourself with a company, that company, especially the other pro staffers in that company, are going to watch you like a hawk, because you not only represent the brand, but you represent them now too, because they're affiliated with that brand. So pro staffers do really monitor what other pro staffers do, and especially from competitors. Pro staff members from competing companies will watch what the other company's pro staff members are doing, and they'll reach out and they'll let people know. And I can tell you right now that the bigger the company is, the less likely they are to keep you on if you have all this crazy, inflammatory political stuff, regardless of what side of the spectrum you're on. If it's inflammatory or derogatory or hurtful to people in another way, and you're casting that stuff on social media, and you can't seem to make any headway or any progress as far as your career goes, that's going to be a big part of why, because you represent that company now, regardless of what your opinion is. So you want to learn how to share that opinion in a constructive way, and not share, things that are illegal or could be considered immoral. And nobody's asking you to not be yourself. I feel more like myself than I ever have, but I have to constantly watch my behavior. I mean, I don't have to constantly watch my behavior, because I'm not like chomping at the bit to piss somebody off on social media or, posting something illegal, because I don't really do any of that stuff. And these days I try to stay out of the political realm and just leave that fight for somebody else, because it's just not healthy for me. And it's not healthy for my career in the fishing industry. And the more it grows, the more careful I have to be about how I share my opinion. I have an opinion, and I have personal missions that I'm on, certain things that I believe in, that I work towards. But I, just like with politics, I vote and then I move on and I go fishing. So keep that in mind. There are people that are watching what you do, and it's not just your peers in that specific company or companies that you represent. And it's not the people who run the pro staff programs, it's the competitors as well. So, your competitors, pro staffs, will often jump at the chance to get you out of the picture, because it's very competitive. Another thing is this, and this is one that I was guilty of early on, is the more is better for pro staff positions. Once I got one, you can often use your affiliation with one company to get the attention of another company and get companies to give you a chance. When I first, two companies that I wanted to represent early on in my career were Clam Outdoors and Vexilar. And I couldn't really get my foot in the door with either one. But as soon as I really made that connection with Clam, Vexilar, because they work so closely together, and the employees of those companies know each other so well, that it's kind of natural. And so once I became a Clam pro, I reached out to Vexilar and said, I'm a Clam pro. Can you bring me on? And that's when I first got my position with Vexilar. So it's really easy to build off of that. And within a year, I was reaching out to companies telling them, I'm a member of 15 different pro staffs. And I had this impressive list of all these different pro staffs. And the one thing that I do pride myself on is I've never accepted a pro staff position from somebody who approached me. It's always been companies whose products I use. I'm impressed by the product. I believe in them. I use them. They're effective. And I've reached out to them. And there have been a couple along the way that over time I realized, this isn't the best fit. I don't use this product very much. It doesn't really have as much of a place in the way that I fish. And I've moved on from those companies. And, for I think most or all except for one that I can think of, there have been no hard feelings whatsoever. It's, I keep it pretty professional. And the one thing I don't do is jump from, one company to the next, as far as within like a type like rod companies. I don't go from rod company to rod company to rod company. I've had rod deals in the past. They haven't worked for me. Custom rod deals are just not part of my, not part of how I operate. I just, I have some custom rods, but being pigeonholed into a custom rod company, it just doesn't work for me. And so I don't do that. And I know that because I've tried it and had some, really nice custom rods that I can't say anything about the product itself, but it just, I felt pigeonholed and there were other things that I needed that I couldn't do. And so I just moved on. And, today I represent Daiwa and they have a high enough quality and a wide enough array of products that I can get anything I need for any style of fishing through them. So it was a more natural fit for me to move into, a company like Daiwa. But racking up, long lists of pro staff is something that some companies do kind of frown on, that because you spread yourself really thin for one thing, and you open yourself up to the opportunity for crossover. We'll take Clam Outdoors, for instance. They sell Mackie Plastics. I'm also on Mackie Plastics pro staff. When a soft plastics company reaches out to me and they want me to try their stuff, it's an instant conflict. And a lot of companies will give you quite a bit of flexibility in that you can use, if you have one or two things that they don't make that somebody else does, they'll let you get away with that. But, for me, I found that nothing is as valuable to a company as loyalty. They absolutely notice what every one of their pro staff members is doing as far as what products they're using. And let's take Old Town, for instance. There was a period of time where I did not have to wear Old Town PFDs in my kayak. I could have used NRS. I could have used anybody. And I have remained loyal to Old Town, and I've worn their PFDs, even though for a time I was on the NRS pro staff. Wouldn't wear their, and that was part of the agreement when I signed on with NRS. They make amazing, clothing and paddling gear, shoes and dry suits and splash pants and splash, gear and really nice stuff. But I wanted to wear an Old Town PFD in my kayaks, and Old Town really appreciated that, even though they wouldn't have kicked me off their pro staff for wearing an NRS PFD. But, I chose to be loyal, and I've been with Old Town a long time. We have a really good relationship, and the same thing with Clam. And as far as, Mackie Plastics, I don't have to use Mackie Plastics to stay on Clam's pro staff, but the fact that I do, and I don't just do it because of the loyalty factor. I do it because they're amazing plastics and they catch fish. I mean, they're incredible. They're hand poured, super soft. The list goes on and on and on. I don't want to turn this into a product promotional podcast, but it's easy. It's an easy decision, but my loyalty is certainly noticed. And I know that it's noticed in these companies, and all companies notice that loyalty. So more is not always better. It companies worry that you're going to get spread too thin, and they worry that there's going to be crossover and you're going to end up just having to leave at some point. Another thing is jumping ship. I get it. If a relationship just isn't working out and you move on, it happens, right? It happens. It's happened. I've had to move on from companies in my career. But the one thing I see occasionally is people that will go from like the kayak fishing industry. They'll go from one kayak manufacturer every year. They're in a different kayak. And after a while, when they say this is the best kayak in the industry, it's kind of, you look at them and you're like, well, last year you said that other brand was the best kayak. And the year before that, you said that brand. And then sometimes they'll go back and forth between. At some point, these companies are going to look at you and they're going to say, you're a waste of money, because it costs money just to add you to the pro staff. It costs that company money. Their marketing people have to add you to websites. Sometimes they'll send you a jersey. You might get a pro staff package or a discount that you take advantage of, or even sometimes a product credit. It costs them money. And if they spend that money and then 6 months or a year later, you jump ship to one of their competitors, it was a waste of money for them. So keep that in mind too, is jumping ship will hurt your career. You make a change, you need to make a change. That's fine. But if you're looking to get into a kayak pro staff position, don't take the first one that takes you on. I knew before I approached Old Town that it was going to be Old Town that I wanted to be in. I wasn't interested in anybody else's kayaks. I knew I wanted to be on Old Town, and I was going to do whatever it took to get into that pro staff, obviously within limits, with honesty and integrity, whatever it took to get on their pro staff. The same thing with Clam. I reached out to Clam for 3 years before they finally brought me on. The industry is a lot different now. It's growing. The ice fishing industry and the kayak industry is growing. So it's easier to kind of get your name out there. There's strong sense of community in those two industries. So it's easy to meet a lot of people. Nobody's really out of reach or unapproachable. You can get out and fish with most anybody and get your name out there. So, I get emails from Matt Johnson at Clam all the time saying, do you know this person? Or, Old Town will reach out and say, do you know this person? Somebody, they've reached out and they're interested in a pro staff position. So more is not always better, and loyalty definitely has a strong price or a strong value, I should say. And jumping ship comes with a price. And there's a lot of opinion in the pro staff industry. Sometimes there's some negativity around pro staff members because, somebody will get brought onto a pro staff, and the next thing you know, their social media page is lit up, and they share everything that they see about that. And sometimes, I go onto some people's Facebook pages. Sometimes I have to unfollow people because they won't stop sharing things. And you go down through these posts. If you're sharing a post every 15 or 30 minutes and you go back and you're getting one like or no likes, it's because you're sharing too much stuff. So take it easy on that. That's kind of one of my pet peeves is oversharing and overposting on social media. You can overcapitalize. I remember somebody used to tell me that all the time, that you can overcapitalize, and you want your posts and your engagement in the world to be targeted. So, be smart about what you share and when you share it to reach the most amount of people. More is not always better when it comes to sharing things on social media. In fact, it's usually not. More isn't better. It's being more specific about who you're targeting and when you target those people and what you're targeting them with. So keep that in mind as well. I talked about loyalty, honesty, and being approachable. No matter how big or how small you are in the fishing industry, as far as notoriety, as soon as you start working in the industry, there's going to be somebody who wants what you have, who looks up to you, who admires you, who wants to try to follow in your footsteps. Everybody has somebody that has a certain level of respect for them. And one thing that I've learned that from watching people, like Jason Mitchell and Dave Gens and trying to think of, some of the Mike Iaconellis, just watching them. Kevin Van Dam, I've had the chance to watch him at like an ICAST. G-Man, Gerald Swindell, I've met him personally. And the one thing that all of those guys, one thing that they all have in common is they treat everybody like they are grateful to be interacting with them. They're grateful that you approached them. I've never seen them or been treated like I was a bother. Sometimes they're busy and they don't have time, and they're clear about that, but they're always so happy and so gracious and honored to be in that position. And that shows in their interactions, and they treat everybody like they couldn't be happier to be approached. When somebody comes up to me at a show or reaches out to me on the internet, I'm just thrilled, because there was a time when nobody wanted anything from me. And I just wanted to be able to help people and be able to share some of what I have with other anglers. So always treat everybody decent, treat them with decency and respect. We all deserve that. Treat them the way you'd want to be treated if you were in their position. I think that's an important one. So yeah, I don't know as though I have a lot more to talk about as far as, being a pro staffer. Carry yourself with honesty and integrity. Don't lie about things. It's pretty easy to tell. You'll see people on social media that they'll recycle old photos and try to make it look like a current photo. And, sometimes I see some of these posts and I'll look at, like ice fishing on Winnipesaukee, and somebody will post a picture of some white perch and there's no snow on the ice. It's clearly an early season photo. There's no snow on the ice. It's not like slushy. It's still that bare, fresh, new, shiny, solid ice. And they'll post it in the end of February when there's snow on the ice. And they'll talk about how they, just annihilated the white perch and they can't wait, and make it sound like they don't say, maybe they won't even say that they were there that day, but they'll do everything they can to make it sound like they were there and look like they were there that day or within a couple of days without actually saying it. So they're not technically lying, but you can tell, I can tell when I look at it, what they're doing. Just by looking at the background or the day, and I know, like, I was in that area. I never saw you there all day. Don't do that. Just be honest. If you haven't fished for a week, I haven't fished much in the last few weeks, and you don't see me. I haven't been posting very many fish pictures, not even on my guide service page, because I haven't really been out much and there isn't really a lot to share. And I'm not going to, sometimes I'll post a picture for attention. And oftentimes I will note pictures for attention, old picture for attention, or I'll have to clarify it in the comments to somebody. So be honest about what you share and how you share it. There's no need to tell stories and try to build yourself up. People will notice, and the industry is so small that word's going to get around, and they're going to know that you're the guy that's full of crap, or they're going to think that you're full of crap. And it's not going to be good for your career in general if you're looking to, break into the industry as more of a career move. So yeah, handle yourself with honesty and integrity. Don't inflate information or, the size of the fish. And there's always going to be somebody that thinks you photoshopped or thinks that you've misjudged a fish. It's, take it with a grain of salt. And I think the last thing I want to touch on is reacting to negativity. There is absolutely going to be some negativity come your way. There is going to be envy and jealousy. Misunderstandings can cause resentment. Fishermen or people in general, you do one thing and they like to make assumptions that you were doing it for selfish reasons. You were stealing a spot. You saw me catch a fish and you moved right over here. And, I've had that happen to me, and I'm like, I don't even know who you are. What day are you talking about? I don't know what you're talking about. I'm not greedy with my spot. So if I catch a fish and people come right over and want to fish near me, I'm not usually very territorial or anything like that. So there's going to be some negativity that's going to come your way. No matter what you do, you can do everything absolutely perfect. And somebody that wants what you have and can't get it is going to get angry about it. They're going to get jealous, and they're going to say bad things about you. And don't react is my biggest piece of information. Matt and I touched on this in the podcast about being a pro staff member. Don't react to it. Just ignore it. And the truth is, like we said in that one, if people have to create a reason to hate you, then you're doing it right, and just keep doing what you're doing. And as long as you treat people with respect and dignity and you're honest, you don't really have anything to worry about. Haters will hate. Let them hate. Treat them with respect and dignity as well. And I've had many people in locally, especially, that didn't like me at one point, and I just treat them with the same respect and dignity that everybody else gets. And eventually those relationships sometimes come around too, and we become friends. So I guess that's about all I have on that for right now. I'm sure I'll think of something after I turn the camera off, but thanks for tuning in. We got some good stuff coming up here in the future. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, regardless of the platform that you're watching or listening to this on. Really appreciate that. It does help. It helps the podcast out a lot, and good things to come. So thanks for tuning in. We'll see you on the next one.